Welcome to Masters of Self University podcast, your highest source of sacred truths and universal wisdom. Hello, beautiful souls. I'm Rachel Fiori, mystic, spiritual teacher, psychic healer, and founder of Masters of Self University. Join our journey of soul transformation as we deep dive into this latest episode.
Hello, everyone. Before Rachel gets started with today's episode, I just want to make you aware that we are now accepting applications for our Mystical Life Coach certification starting in the second week of January 2024. That's in less than 2 months away from us right now. So if you are interested in doing what myself, what Ellie, and all our amazing other Mystical Life Coaches do, if you're interested in becoming a coach, earning the certification, please join us. Follow the link below, fill out the application, and jump on a quick consultation with me. I'll see you in another episode. Thanks.
Hello, magnificent beings. Welcome to Masters of Self University podcast. I'm Rachel Fiori, your host for this episode. I would love to talk to you about a program that almost everybody runs to varying degrees, and one that is so sabotaging to your relationships, especially romantic relationships, but I'm talking about all relationships. It is a motherfucker of a program, and it will always destroy intimacy. It makes you a very unsafe person emotionally to be around. You are so emotionally unsafe when you run this program that it always destroys relationships, especially marriages, romantic partnerships. Okay. And before I tell you what it is, I'm going to give you this warning that when I first say what it is, you're going to be like, wait, what? That's not very profound. And you might gloss over it and ignore it, and maybe even not want to listen to the rest of this podcast because you're going to talk about that, really. And here's my warning to you. My warning to you is it is precisely those of you that dismiss this, don't think it's a big deal, and don't think that you do it. I can almost guarantee this is one of the biggest problems in your fucking relationship or previous relationships, or why it is so hard for you to have healthy relationships with people, romantic or otherwise. And it doesn't mean you have zero relationships that are great or a great friend or whatever. It's just this one, it comes up and it is sneaky. And my warning, one more time before I tell you this program, is if you ignore this or dismiss it or roll your eyes when I say it, like, oh, really that? Okay. Pfft, whatever, Rachel. I can almost guarantee you run this program so fucking much and it's in your blind spot. And this has been a massive deal in your relationships in the past and probably currently. And you're wondering what's so wrong. Why can't your relationships be more harmonious? Why don't they ever work out? And the program is blame, blaming, pointing the finger at someone else and blaming them for how you feel. Blame, blame, blame. When we are unhappy, when we are miserable, when we are suffering, was the very first thing that our knee-jerk reaction is to blame someone or something for how we feel. This is so bad. Let me find somebody to blame. Let me find someone to sue. Let me pin this on some. Oh, this has to be misogyny. This has to be racism. I'm sorry. There's enough legitimate fucking misogyny, racism, inequality in the world. You don't have to make it up. There's enough to go around. You don't have to blame things constantly on someone else or something outside of you because you're failing or because your relationship ended. You're going to blame, oh, it's all the other person's fault. Very rarely is that the case. It can be sometimes. I'll give you that. It can. Rarely. Blame, blame, blame. As soon as somebody is struggling, they're faced with a big challenge, They're emotionally struggling. They're in a lot of pain. They're triggered. They're angry. They're frustrated. They're whatever they are. We immediately look to blaming someone or something outside of us. It's this, it's you. We immediately do that. And what that creates, what that shows other people, you are not a safe person to be close to emotionally. You're fucking unsafe. You are the farthest thing from harmlessness and gentleness. No, I'm not. I'm the nicest, most thoughtful person in the world. Do you know how many people I've known? I had a family member who has always been one of the most thoughtful, considerate people you could ever meet in your life. One of the most thoughtful. I mean, it's such a magical. I don't know if I've ever met another human being that is quite as thoughtful as this human being. I'm dead serious when I say that. Off the charts thoughtful. Always considering others. Oh my God, I do that. In such a divine, selfless, beautiful way. One of this person's just best divine characteristics, and it's very genuine. It doesn't come from trying to make you like me or running a program of insecurity. There's nothing attached to it. It is a divine level of thoughtfulness and consideration of others. It's just absolutely fucking remarkable. This person could teach classes on this stuff. And yet, this person is often alone. Relationships never work. A lot of friendships fall apart. Such a genuinely thoughtful, considerate person. And what happens is this person will always resort to blame and judgment. This harsh fucking level of blame and judgment. And it makes this person so emotionally unsafe to be around. So guess what then happens? This destroys relationships because it destroys emotional intimacy. It destroys emotional safety. Emotional safety, a lack thereof, destroys any intimacy here between you and I. And if you and I cannot have intimacy between each other as friends, as partners, business partners, friendships, romantic spouses, it doesn't matter what kind of relationship we're talking about. If emotional safety is threatened, that means you are threatening. You are not safe, because I don't know when you are going to turn around with your fucking sudden harshness and make me feel so fucking attacked and judged and blamed. Do you understand? This is what is on the receiving end when you are a person who blames. And you can never be seen as a safe person when you run these programs, when you run a program of blame and pointing fingers, which always is coupled with judgment, of course. So here's the question. Why would somebody choose you to be in relationship with? Why? Why should they stay with you? Why? Why should they keep being friends with you? Why? Why should they stay married or stay in this romantic partnership with you? Why? And you're not allowed to answer that with money because I provide. I bought the house. I bought the car. You can't answer with money. Money is removed from the table. Anything related to money or monetary value, you're done. That is not an answer. Why? Why? Ask that question for yourself. Why would a person choose you? Why? Why would a person choose to be intimate with you? I'm not talking about sex, by the way. No sex in this conversation. I'm talking about divine, mature intimacy. Why would a person choose to be friends with you, be in a romantic relationship? And even though I'm talking about romantic, all relationships, all types of relationships, sex is not on the table, has nothing to do with it. Okay? So when I say intimacy, unless I specify otherwise, I'm talking about emotional intimacy, emotional safety. Okay? Why would a person choose to be with you? Are you safe? Are you going to blame them? Are you going to judge them? Are you going to emotionally attack them? Are you that unsafe in this relationship that at any point in time, you never know when it's coming, but here comes the blame and here comes the judgment? Are you that person? And if you are, you wonder why your relationships either suck or they've always fallen apart. And here's where it gets tricky, because this is oneness consciousness. This is no longer learning from separation consciousness like the old world we've mastered. Okay, so this isn't black, white, left, right. This isn't, it's either this or it's that. That there's no such thing in oneness consciousness teachings. You want to learn the universal ways of oneness, grab that book, The 20 Universal Ways of Oneness, on Amazon. Grab your copy, start to learn the ways. It'll start to shift you out of separation consciousness, which blame is a program of separation. And you can begin the journey and the path to elevate yourself into a being of oneness consciousness. Okay. Now. So let me say this. Let me emphasize this for a moment. Blame creates separation, period, end. It destroys intimacy. It destroys emotional safety. Okay. And here's where it gets tricky, because that's a program of separation. And yet, the tricky part can be, because we've mastered and come from nothing but separation consciousness, it can be really challenging to start to understand and elevate into the consciousness that is oneness consciousness, that allows us to understand that a person in front of you really might be showing up as a motherfucker. They might be. They might be very unkind, very unloving right now. Maybe it is your spouse. Maybe it is your partner that's running these programs that are terrible programs. And this can be really tricky to navigate when we've come from nothing but separation consciousness. Because if you just didn't do that, I wouldn't feel this way. Oh, there's a trap. I'm going to blame you for how I feel. Here's the tricky part. Stay with me. Open your hearts. I'm going to give the scenario. You are showing up as a motherfucker, and that makes me feel terrible. Do not listen to the pseudo-spiritual BS teachings. This doesn't help you. I am not judging them. I am telling you their BS with no judgment. But I'm telling you their BS for a reason, because they keep you fucking trapped, and you cannot elevate and go higher in your level of consciousness or enlightenment when you're trapped in these particular programs. And one of them is, no one can make you feel anything. Bullshit. You're responsible for your own feelings. Ooh, be careful. Trap. It's a trap. I am not blaming you for how I feel. Learning subtle energies, which is exactly 100% what you learn to work with when you do any of our programs at Masters of Self University, when you get any of our coaching, you start to learn how to work with subtle energies. Why? Every emotion, every program you run, mental, emotionally, behaviorally, all of it is energy. Your wounds that are unhealed are energies. Period. End. Energies don't die. They can only be transformed or elevated into higher frequencies. That's permanent healing. Energies never lie. They don't lie. So when you start to learn how to detect subtle energies, you can show up as the way of truth. Whoa, you showed up as a motherfucker right now. It's very unkind. Holy crap, that was filled with judgment and blame. And yet, I am responsible for healing me. No such thing that you showing up as a motherfucker isn't going to, I'm going to feel that negative emotion because of that. That's going to hurt my feelings to some degree. I'm going to feel that. And it is not okay for you to show up as a harmful person that lacks harmlessness and gentleness, the way of harmlessness and gentleness, that lacks that vibrational frequency. Obviously, you're showing up as harmful. The lack of divinity in the way you are showing up is always going to cause a negative emotion in another person. It is bullshit to believe that when you become an enlightened being, you suddenly are a robot. You're not a fucking robot. People want you to believe that so they can brainwash you and trick you into AI taking over the fucking world. You're not a goddamn robot. An enlightened being is still human. You still have human emotions. It's going to hurt when somebody is cruel and mean and unkind. It's fucking supposed to. Why is it supposed to hurt? So you realize there's a lack of divinity here. Something needs to be done. And if you're the one showing up in darkness and evil and a lack of divinity, I damn well better be the one that shows up 100 times over in my divinity, my holiness, my light, my ways of oneness. I better show up that powerfully right now, because look at the shit you're spewing. And you can say that without pointing your fingers and blaming. How do you know you're blaming? You feel the fucking energy of it. How do you know you were only in the way of truth? And the way of truth is, wow, you showed up as a motherfucker right there. Ooh, ow, that hurt. That hurt my feelings. I am going to step into the ways of oneness and become more elevated as the ways of oneness. This is the truth of what I am. I am going to become more elevated now in harmlessness and gentleness, because you sure as fuck don't know how to do that. You just caused a lot of harm emotionally in me. That's not okay. It is my responsibility as the way of responsibility to heal that in myself, to see it for what it is, as the way of truth, as the way of compassion, connection, and harmlessness and gentleness. I will elevate out of what was caused by you energetically right now, because we are nothing but energetic beings. And my responsibility, because I'm an enlightened being of oneness consciousness, is to alchemize and heal all of this right now. And whatever needs I have to become, whatever needs me to become it, meaning the ways of oneness, I need to become this way, that way, 10 ways of oneness. I will become that right now in order to make up for the lack of that in you. And you can be that and say that without any fucking judgment or blame or pointing of any fingers. When we cease running the programs of pointing fingers and blaming, we elevate out of what causes people to point fingers and blame to begin with. And if you learn and study and become each and every way of oneness and move up every level, 9 levels of every 20 ways of oneness, and you make that your focus in this lifetime, all of this nonsense of how we show up with each other all of the time gets alchemized, it goes away. Suddenly, we have a new matrix created from the universal ways of oneness only. And boom, look at that. How miraculous. We've created a new earth based on oneness consciousness only. Mastering separation consciousness allowed us to make the choice to evolve into something a billion times higher. This is it. Which earth do you choose to move forward on? You cannot run programs of blame and judgment and be a contestant on the new earth. It doesn't work that way. You think because you're spiritual, you're going to a new earth? You think this is a passive process? What the fuck? Wake up for real, will ya? Or don't. 5D, new earth, higher dimensions. Those are created by divine creator beings, and that means you and me. And if you're not creating that and you're running programs of judgment, of blame, of shaming others, of being trapped in victim consciousness and using other people's negativity and unkindness, a lack of divinity in them, for you to stay small and powerless, and I can't get ahead because of you, meh. If you're going to use that stuff as excuses, instead of, oh, look at that. Over there, it really could be true that you make it 50 times harder for me to get ahead with any fucking thing in life because I'm a woman, for example. There's a lot of fucking truth in that. Does that mean I use it as a fucking excuse to stay small? No, look at that. Isn't this interesting? You trying to make it so much harder on me. That's really cute. Because what's hilarious about that is I get to see, oh, I need to become 80 times more powerful in this scenario. I benefit from that. And so does everyone around me. Joke's on you. You can make it harder if you want to. Oh, great. You're going to make it harder. Okay. Well, what does that mean if I'm a divine being of oneness consciousness? I just have to be 100 times more powerful. I win. Everyone in that scenario wins when I can become that much more powerful because you're trying to make it harder. Ridiculous. I don't use that as an excuse. And it doesn't mean it lacks truth. Can you see the difference? Stop blaming others for how stuck you are, you're suffering, how trapped you are. Stop blaming your partner. Instead, learn to become each and every way of oneness. Become a higher vibrational frequency. I am because I meditate. Sorry, not what we're talking about here. You're still in elementary school with your spiritual teachings. And for any of you that just took offense to that, grow the fuck up. You're not even in elementary school. You haven't made it that far yet. There's no put down. That's not an insult. It is the way of truth. You have to see where you're at for real. Nobody's superior to you and nobody's inferior to you. For those of you who run the superiority programs, there's no such thing. We are in different grades. Everybody's in different grades in their level of consciousness and their level of awakening. Okay. And as far as oneness consciousness goes, by the way, and the universal ways of oneness, it's never been offered to the planet before. The 20 universal ways of oneness have never been offered to the planet before right now. So guess what? You're not mastered in it because you fucking can't be. It hasn't even been here long enough for you to learn about it. Let's stop taking that as a fucking insult. Because if that's where you're trapped and you get offended by shit and you take everything the wrong way, who's the one blaming? You are. They're blaming someone else for how you feel. I'm offended because of what you said. Grow the fuck up. You're a child. And these are the programs that need to be seen, embraced, loved with the way of compassion, the way of unconditional love, the way of harmlessness and gentleness, the way of loyalty to your own divinity, the way of purity, in order for you to alchemize these very programs that you run. Because these are the programs that absolutely fucking destroy relationships, period, end. You are not a safe person when you blame. When you point fingers, you're not emotionally safe. Period, fucking end. That part, very black and white. And it's why people struggle in their relationships so fucking much, is because what comes with it are these programs of blame, pointing fingers, and judgment. That means inequality, superiority, inferiority programs are being run when you do that. I'm playing superior when I blame and point fingers and judge you. I'm running a program of superiority, which means I'm running a program of inequality, which means I'm not a fucking safe person to be around. I cannot be trusted. I am lacking the way of trust. I am lacking the way of connection. I am lacking the way of harmlessness and gentleness. I am lacking the way of equality. All the rest of the ways I'm lacking too, by the way. But those are the main ones. And then you wonder why you go through these phases of loneliness and why your relationships are falling apart. Stop blaming everyone else for how you fucking show up or for how you feel. Stop. Grow up. You have to heal that. And it is not your spouse's or your partner's job to heal it. Quit with the codependency bullshit. Because with codependency comes neediness. You are running programs of neediness. And if you are neediness, you're running the energy and have the energy of neediness. That means you're showing up as a little child, a wounded little boy or a wounded little girl. And that neediness means you are nothing but an energy suck. You're an energy vampire to your spouse, which means you become a burden. You see the domino effect of all this, how it goes? You then become a burden. And that is a person when you're needy and you're judging, you're blaming, you're needy, you're weak, you're powerless, you're all these things, domino effect of all of these clusters of programs that tend to show up together, whether you're aware of them or not. And then you wonder why your partner doesn't want to have sex with you anymore, or the passion dies. you're an energy vampire when you run these programs. It isn't your spouse's responsibility to heal you or elevate you out of these programs. It is yours. You're an adult. And the sad part about this, when you do the coaching at Masters of Self University, when you do our coaching programs, what you'll often find, and this is the beauty of this work, the programs I just described are often, I want you to reassure me. I want you to make me feel safe. I want you to, oh, think about that. A lot of spiritual communities, even a lot of therapists, are out there teaching people that, well, your partner should make you feel safe. It's not your job to make me feel safe. It is your job to not destroy my safety. There is a difference. It is on me to feel safe within myself in order to have the power to heal myself. If I'm in neediness, I am a wounded little child. And that wounded little child, so sad when you see this a lot. And a lot of people run these programs. The sad thing is, it is often a baby. The wound is trapped in a baby or a toddler or anywhere in between. I couldn't tell you how many times I've seen programs like these being run in people, the mental, emotional, and behavioral programs. Blame, judgment, etc., where there's a lack of safety, which is why they create a lack of safety in their relationship. This is how programs work. Okay? So there's a lack of safety. It means my wound, I don't feel safe, which is why I turn around and create a lack of safety emotionally between you and me. And oftentimes, it is very common for a program like that to be created, and it comes from a wound of often a baby or a toddler. And like I said, I couldn't tell you how many times I've seen like a baby or a toddler standing up in a crib. When psychically I tap in, how did this wound get created? And there's a baby just standing there crying because there's either screaming, fighting going on in the house. They desperately are in fear and the chaos. They're confused, the tremendous amount of fear, powerlessness, and all they want is mom or dad to pick them up and nurture them and hug them and rock them and let them know that they're safe and they're okay. And they need that. They're a baby. They can't give that to themselves. It has to come from outside of them when they're that young. This is oneness consciousness. We're supposed to provide that. And then along the way, as you grow and age, you learn how to provide that and be that for yourself. That's what parents are supposed to do. They're supposed to teach this to their children, provide it for them unconditionally while they're teaching their child to connect to their own divinity, to move through conflict, challenge by processing their own emotions, by connecting to their own divinity during these scary, challenging times. You're teaching that in order to teach the child, this divine soul having a human experience, how to be human to begin with. That's what parenting is supposed to be all about. You're their first divine teacher, and yet you don't teach your kids this because you can't even do it for yourselves. You're still trapped in the programs of pointing fingers and blaming. So then you have this child screaming in a crib, did not get the need of nurturing, the way of compassion, the way of connection, these ways of oneness. Didn't get that, the way of harmlessness and gentleness. Didn't get that. Didn't get the way of trust that I trust you're going to be there for me when I need you and I'm scared. Little baby didn't get that. And therefore, how that manifests in a relationship oftentimes is that wounded person then turns around and creates a lack of emotional safety with their partner, often with behavioral programs like blaming, pointing the finger, shaming, judgment. And there's a hamster wheel of a cluster of programs and how programming actually works. Did any of you relate to that? Did any of you see that in your old relationships, maybe with an ex-partner, maybe with your current partner, maybe within yourself? I just had a couple session with somebody, for example, where these were the programs, very similar, that the partner was running. He was running them And what was being created was all separation, of course, so emotional distance, disconnection. And in that relationship, the woman, that partner gained a deeper understanding in that moment. It is not her responsibility. The way of responsibility lets us know what scenarios we are not responsible for. That's part of being the way of responsibility. It's not her job to heal him. She's not his mommy. She's not the parent who abandoned him in the crib, who was violent in front of him. She didn't do any of that, and yet she's paying for it because this is just how our wounds work. Not blame, understanding. This doesn't excuse how he showed up in his relationship. It doesn't justify. It allows us to gain understanding, which allows us over time to gain the way of compassion. See how beautiful that is? We have the way of compassion. She can then be a beautiful support in the way of compassion as he, in the way of responsibility, becomes all the ways of oneness in order to heal these really deep wounds that cause pointing fingers, blaming, judgment, the destruction of emotional intimacy, etc. So, I hope you're gaining a deeper understanding of how programs work. And the blame program can be very blatantly obvious, as we know, and it can also be really sneaky how it creeps in. If you are letting your partner know, for example, this isn't okay. I'm frustrated. Well, there's a deflection program, often gaslighting there. But this is a blame, a pointing the finger at you. And the blame program, pointing the finger at you, can often be used and is often coupled with a program of deflection, program of powerlessness. I don't feel like I can connect to my divinity and heal this right now. I don't feel like I have the power to heal this right now. Now, I don't want to admit that in myself. This isn't conscious. These are the unconscious programs that people will often run. This is too painful. I want to avoid. I want to do all the things. I feel bad because you. Or even in healing, even in doing work like we offer at Masters of Self University, there can be a phase of, I'm going to blame you because I don't want to look at myself and take accountability and responsibility because I don't even function as the first way of oneness out of 20, the way of responsibility. I don't want to take accountability. I don't want to see this dark, ugly shit. Why? I want to blame other people for how I feel. That's why. And if you're holding me accountable and I feel bad about that, it's bringing up negative emotions. I'm going to blame you, my coach, instead. People can absolutely go through those phases. And I'm now going to blame my dogs for ruining this podcast episode by barking in the background. For any of you that heard that. I hope you've gained a deeper understanding of how programs really work and how intricate they actually are. And I hope you can truly understand how incredibly important it is, the work that we offer at Masters of Self University. Because the more you learn about this stuff, the more you realize it is incredibly, incredibly intricate. And yet so simple to heal it. Simple to heal. But it is a process. These programs tend to run so deep within people that even people who have done a lot of work on themselves have no clue. They don't see the programs they're running, that they are actually running and projecting onto others. They don't understand certain programs that they don't even realize they're running are the very programs that sabotage their relationships. And yet they always think it's the other person's fault because the other person tends to show up in their wounding and their programming, of course, too. But look at that when we blame other people. It allows us to bypass and scapegoat the very programs we run that attracted that person into your life to begin with. Even if that person, that ex, that whatever, was an awful, awful person, they could have been awful. And even if they were, what programs were you running? Because sometimes program of blame and judgment can only show itself to you that you run those programs when somebody is really awful to you, because that is when you write the excuse of justification of why you're judging or why you're blaming in that moment. Well, but look at what they did. It's so terrible. That right there is where you fall into the trap of a low level of consciousness. I've even seen this with infidelity. People have come to me, well, he cheated on me 4 years ago. They never did the work to heal any of it. He just said, sorry, expected her to freaking get over it. Never going to fucking heal that shit in that case. Never. And then 4 years later, she ends up cheating. And all that unhealed stuff. And that it is so easy to blame. It's so easy to blame. When you become the universal ways of oneness, when you do the work to become that level of elevation, that level of enlightenment, you don't make excuses for yourself. You have compassion for yourself, for your pain. There's a difference. You don't make excuses. You don't justify. You don't point fingers. You don't blame. You don't function in that level of separation consciousness, negative, low level of old earth consciousness anymore. That right there is what liberates you and sets you free from everything, from your life circumstances, from the job you fucking hate that you've been trying to get out of forever. Do you understand those lower levels of consciousness, that programming that you can't even see how intricate it is what is keeping you trapped and in suffering. And yet, if you learn about programming at this level, if you learn to become the ways of oneness, you simply elevate out of them. You alchemize that shit that is no longer in your energetic fields. It is no longer in your mental programming, emotional programming, behavioral programming. It doesn't exist in you anymore, which means the old circumstances, the old you, the old relationships, the old life, the scarcity, whatevers cannot exist in you anymore. You've elevated higher, which means your circumstances around you has to change. They have no choice energetically. And whether you understand what this means in this moment or not, I'm going to say it. When you start to heal and alchemize things and elevate, you have to elevate 3 octaves higher than where you were yesterday. And you're not going to do that in a matter of 24 hours. You have to be 3 octaves higher. Otherwise, the same or similar things, you will still exist in that because you haven't gone high enough for what's there yesterday to no longer actually be in your manifested reality. And that part is where a lot of people get trapped. I'm healing, I'm elevating, I'm changing. How many octaves? It's okay if you don't fully know what that means. You don't have to. You want to really learn that and you want to get out and get the octaves high enough where your old reality that you don't like anymore is no longer your experience. You have to go octaves higher, more than 3. Otherwise, you're still in the same level of attracting the same things, similar things. That's why some people, when they get a little bit better, their circumstances around them get a little bit better, but they don't drastically change. Sometimes you jump, you cross that threshold and you're like, oh my God, like my whole world changed overnight. Did it though? Was it really overnight? And it doesn't mean that's impossible, by the way. Don't you dare come from separation consciousness and misunderstand my fucking teachings. Didn't say that. Didn't say never. Didn't say it was impossible. But you typically cannot make the leap octaves higher. There is a progression, and there's a progression for a reason, for many, many, many reasons. Your physical body, the most important one, I think is the absolute most important one, is that your physical body has to catch up. You can't be that more elevated and not have your physical body go through the process it needs to go through to catch up to holding that level of light, that vibrational frequency. Your physical body now has to vibrate and resonate at too. You have a physical body. You're in human form, for crying out loud. The physical body always has to catch up. And that's usually pain, discomfort. You can feel sick. Like there's a lot of symptoms of ascension that you will go through. Fatigue is really massive one. Okay. You'll go through that in order for your physical body to catch up. Your physical body cannot go from 0 to a million in enlightenment and literally survive it, which is why awakening is a path that takes time. You make progress, and it is a process. Here's how you can elevate and make that process go much faster. Stop with the blame programs. Stop blaming other people for how you feel and elevate enough to discern the difference between, whoa, the way of truth, that hurts because that lacks divinity. That's unkind. I don't like that at all. Ooh, that was mean and nasty. That was emotionally violent. What the fuck? That made me feel terrible. And the way of that's the way of truth. And the way of responsibility, I'm going to heal that and alchemize that within myself. Why? Because I am the way of connection, because I am the way of presence for myself, because I am the way of truth. And I understand that if I don't do that and offer that to me, that's going to create a wound. That energy is going to get trapped in me. And then I'm just going to repeat cycles. And this incident is going to happen in some way, shape, or form over and over and over again. I'm going to project that out into the world because I did not become the way of responsibility and alchemize what that person just did that created negativity, harm, the energy of harm. I'm going to alchemize that. I'm going to elevate beyond that because I am powerful enough to do that. And harmlessness and gentleness, are you kidding me? That was not offered here by this person. So I'm going to become that 10 times over in order to alchemize and raise the level of elevation so that less and less people like that come to me and do that to me. Why? Because I vibrated out of their experience. That is how we move into a new earth, by the way, create the new earth and then live on the new earth. We vibrate out of the old experiences of separation consciousness, of cruelty, of being mean, of being superior, of being harmful, of cheating, of lying, of stealing. We elevate octaves high enough where that is no longer our existence. And you can't do that if you don't elevate enough and you are no longer that existence. You are a vibrational frequency. Those energies cannot be inside of you. They can't be a part of you. They cannot emanate from you. They can't be created by you because they are you. And you move into a new experience, something that's better and healthier and more wonderful. You are the one that creates the healthier, better, more wonderful version of the world you would like to live in because you've become it first yourself. And once that foundation, that cement is poured and it hardens and it solidifies and it simply is the foundation that is you permanently, that is when what around you, the reality around you, you see the catching up. You see the difference in your reality at that point because you're solid enough in your new foundation, the new vibrational frequencies that are octaves enough away from higher than the old you. If you're a little higher, you might see no change in your reality or a little bit. Miraculous change is impossible if you're a teeny tiny bit higher than you were before. And it doesn't mean you're not moving towards the miracle. That's how you move towards the miracle and bring the miracle in. But you won't see miraculous change by making a tiny bit of a correction within your vibrational frequency. You have to go way higher than that and make sure that that higher vibrational frequency isn't something that lasts an hour or a day or a week. It has to be permanent. Once that's a solid foundation and that is the new you, period, and you never go back to that old you, that's when you see your reality around you change. Again, one of the fastest ways to do that, get rid of the blame programs, the pointing of the finger programs. Stop blaming others. Stop pointing fingers. Stop running those superiority programs. Stop the judgment. You have to heal that shit within yourself. You are not a safe person when you blame, when you point fingers, and when you judge. And if you run those programs, why would anybody choose you? I don't say that to shame you. Never. Why would anyone choose you? Why? When that's what you resort to, pointing fingers, blame, judgment. Why would someone choose you to be friends, to marry you, to be in a relationship with you, to be in a business partnership with you? Why would they choose you? You're not a safe person. And because of that, those are the programs we want to wake up to. How many of those programs do you still run? How many situations or scenarios are there where that is what you resort to? Oh, I invite you to get excited and wake up to that. You want to jump octaves, change your reality, get out of that fucking job that you hate, that you've been trying to get out of for years? This is how. You have to be octaves higher, not just change a few things here and there. You have to see these nasty, gnarly programs because they're so low in their vibrational frequency. You can be way higher in other areas of your life, higher vibrational frequencies in other areas of your life. But if you still run the judgment, the superiority, the blame, the point the fingers, you are far fucking lower than you even realize. And again, that is never shaming you. That is never a judgment. It is waking you up so you can heal for real. Isn't that exciting? This is how you heal for real. This is how you elevate for real. You have to see the gnarly programs that you run, that our world has been conditioned to run. And we have to say enough's enough. I will never run these programs ever again. And I'm going to do whatever it takes to heal them inside of myself in order to help heal this whole world. Because when I heal me, I help heal this whole world. Do you see it? And you are powerful enough to do that. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Get a free consultation from Masters of Self University and learn about our coaching programs where we can help you become the being of oneness consciousness. That's what we're here to do. That is what we do. That is what we are. And that is what we are helping you to become for those of you who are ready and willing. Thank you for listening. I'll see you next time.